Good morning, everyone. I think we have about 59 people online. I think we can get started for today. So welcome to our first eSenders workshop of this year. Good to see you all again. I hope you had a good Christmas end of year break a few months ago. And we're very pleased to see you again to bring you up to date with where we are with eForms, basically. And so the agenda is familiar for those of you who have been following us for some time. I will do the presentation for the business part, and then Yanis will provide more details on technical issues. And today's big content is quite a lot of details about SDK2, which we've been trading for some time. But now there's a lot of things happening, so we want to bring you up to speed on that. So to get us started, just to remind you, so your microphones are off. We'll see in the question and answers if we have any time to open them up. But as usual, we'll be using Slido to handle all your questions and answers. So Jenny's just posted it in the chat if you want to go there with the link. And this meeting has been recorded. It'll be posted online in a couple of days. Today's two presentations will also be added online on the same place you found the agenda where you registered. And then we'll try and get the question and answers summarized and posted also, and in the not too distant future. And it takes us a couple of weeks, depending on the detail of the questions. So I suggest we go already to Slido, get you warmed up, check that you can connect. So what one word describes your mood this morning? So yeah, sunny. It's actually sunny here as well. A bit cold, but sunny. That's always good. So hopefully spring is reaching you. We got some nice sunny weather here. I'm in Metz, just south of Luxembourg. I'm glad you're happy, sunny, excited, blissful and fresh. But yes, some of you are tired or not as good as it should be and busy. Weekend soon, yes. I was thinking of that one too. Happy and sunny. So eFormed. That's interesting. Sleepy. Overwhelmed. Friday. Yes. Well. So I think spring is having a good effect, but yeah, it cannot do everything for everyone. But I'm glad that the mood is generally positive. We're ready to go. Okay, then now you're on Slido, you know where to ask the questions. And we'll have some questions for you after our two presentations, just to get a little bit of feedback, and then we'll go straight into the usual question and answers. In the meantime, I can present my part, and then I'll hand over straight over to Yanis. So then we do the two presentations, one after the other, and then we'll have more time for questions at the end. So having said all that, I have carefully not put my presentation where it should be. So please bear with me. I'll be right with you. You can continue expressing your moods if needed. I'll just bring up my PowerPoint. Okay. I'll start sharing my screen. Okay. Right, should we see my screen now with the Slido? And here's my PowerPoint. Okay. So yes, I do the business issues as usual. So I'll just tell you what we've got on for today. So it's springtime, a bit of Easter's, eggs and bunnies. And what we're talking about today, so we have the current SDKs. Many of you have been asking about the lifespan of what we have today. We'll cover that. We'll tell you what's coming up, SDK 1.15, SDK 2.0. That's also the main topic of today. I will present a couple of things that will be in SDK 2. So the revision of unpublished fields and the introduction of dynamic rules in SDK 2. The data quality assistant is something to give you a heads up what's on the horizon in the longer, not immediately, but it's coming up, and then just a view of what else is on the horizon. So I've kept this thermometer. It works quite well. I think I'll use it every quarter. So to start, SDK 1.12. It's currently planned. We will update it basically this afternoon, but I wanted to tell you here. The extended lifespan was going to end on the 30th of June this year. So that's quite soon. We see some of you are upgrading, moving off 1.12, but need a bit more time. So we will extend it to the end of October 26. There are 13 of you on 1.12. There's some double counting in these numbers because some of you offer more than one SDK. So there are about 10 of you only on 1.12. So those of you who have to upgrade in the next 6 months or so. So this gives you a bit more time to move, and those who were planning to move, you might have a little bit more time to finish off. So 1.12, I say it's generally legal. You've got the basics there. But if any of your buyers want to report international procurement instrument, they cannot do it with 1.12. Energy efficiency directive is there as well, but that's still being transposed. So maybe there's not so much pressure on that one. And the voluntary forms, again, if you want to use them, you must be a 1.13 at least. So we do recommend you move off 1.12 as soon as you can, and so that by October it's it can be basically switched off for submission. Meanwhile, we have 1.13, which is definitely the popular one. 1.13 is the one that included everything from the second amendment of eForms. So this is a legal one, as it were, the legal basis we're working on. 1.14 came out last December, so we've extended that also. There's a handful of you already on 1.14. It has about a year's worth of maintenance on 1.13, so quite a few changes, but nothing structural. We extended both of them to the end of December next year. So that's a long time. You've got all of this year and all of next year to move off it. When SDK 1.15 and 2.0 come out, we'll align it at the same time. So the idea is we'll have 4 SDKs on the same lifespan. So that next year you can be upgraded to SDK 2.1. We'll see what that means. It's not defined yet, but the idea is that at least this year you are not forced to rush, and most of next year you'll be okay to upgrade. 1.13, so the standard lifespan runs out basically this month. So that means we're not going to patch 1.13 anymore. We have one last patch we're preparing now. If you follow GitHub in detail, we'll probably see if we get it out next week. And that's basically what has been backported from SDK 1.14. So view templates, labels get improved, and there are, I think, 3 rules which have been loosened up, which were needed for 1.13. 1.14 had a small patch in March. It was there was a regular expression for that was not allowing some negative numbers, which was still being used. So we loosened that with a 1.14 patch. So that's what's happening there. 1.15 and 2.0 we'll see in the next slide, but basically it's June, July. We have some news for you there. We'll add it later. What happens after SDK 2.0? So we've been saying, well, we are still saying that beyond SDK 2.0, we would have a third amendment to the eForms regulation, and that 2.1 would implement that. Right now, certainly in the Commission and even on our side, we've been working on SDK 2, but there's a lot of work on the revision of the directives, the new Public Procurement Act. We'll see that later on. So the capacity to think about touching eForms has been pretty much all sucked up by thinking what happens beyond beyond eForms, way beyond that, and much bigger issues. So nothing much has moved on this one. I would say, well, our current thinking is maybe after the summer, we'll pick up what would be done in the third amendment. And then there would be an SDK 2 point something release that would implement the third amendment. Looking at the timing, it's unlikely there would be an SDK that implements the third amendment, before summer 27. So that's quite far into the future. So we think it possibly SDK 2.1 itself might be needed in between if we see that the third amendment will take longer. So just don't get too hung up on the version numbers of the SDK, because until we know when the amendment is there, we won't know when we'll be able to provide an SDK. And seeing as there's always a need for a certain amount of maintenance in SDK to improve things, there might be an intermediate maintenance release before. So that's the thing. But basically, these 4 SDKs will be available until the end of next year. And then we'll be able to provide you more details when we know later this year. Okay, well, that's the lifespan things. So we're getting down to more specific things. We've got a couple of SDKs coming. So 1.15 is a maintenance release. So 1.14 came out at the end of last year. We've got about 6 months of changes and updates. Our plan is to release it in June this year. We had said that 1.15 would come with a revision of the unpublished fields, but the changes are actually technically they're actually break-in changes, and we thought it was better to move it into SDK 2 anyway, so that when you make your changes for unpublished, you do it all with SDK 2.0. So in any case, for technical reasons, it would have been a major release. And we'll see that in a moment. So a bit of a change of scope. Our plan is that 1.15 and 2.0 have the same business equivalence. So basically the rules mean the same, so that when you provide a notice in 1.15, it would also validate against SDK 2.0. We'll see that in a second, unless you use an unpublished fields, because they would have moved around. And we also adding dynamic rules. So with those 2 exceptions, we want 1.15 to be like a basis for 2.0. So the rules exist in both with the same meaning, even if they're implemented technically a little bit different. 1.15 is the last SDK 1 release. So we're not going to do anything more on SDK 1. And so, for example, when the third amendment comes, it's going to be on SDK 2. So basically, we would like everyone to be moving to SDK 2 onwards. SDK 2, the impact of SDK 2 will depend a lot on how you use the SDK. So if you use an EFX, it'll be quite a big change, but you'll see with lots of goodies as well, lots of improvements that will help you. So there will be work for you, but hopefully you will benefit from it. If you're not fluent using EFX, it will be relatively, it'll be as similar to upgrading to 1.15. So this is a short version. Yannis will give more details, but we've got an alpha just came out yesterday, a beta next month, a release candidate in July, and broadly speaking, SDK 2 in production. We're aiming for September. So there's plenty of work going on in the next few months, but you get plenty of of ways you can keep up with it, so you can assess the impact on you, and you can start trying out things. So if you're not using EFX, so you're not using unpublished fields, I'll check the typo. Basically, you upgrade to 2.0 will be similar to an upgrade to 1.15. So if you're doing things, if you're not too metadata driven, that will be easier for you in that sense, even if you have to do work other ways. And we have dynamic roles. We'll talk about that. We've updated the SDK roadmap page, so it's actually reflects what we're saying today. So at least that page is more useful now. It was pretty out of date. Okay, SDK 1.15. Just to see that it's not very big at all in that sense. Just to let you know that when we do things for SDK, we do get the approval of the expert group on e-procurement, which is where the member states are represented. Some of you in this meeting are also in that one. But for those of you who are not public eSenders or not involved in that, you can actually follow it in this link. There's a GitLab where the issues are listed, so you can follow there and see what's coming. So you don't get any decision-making input, but you can even comment if needed, but at least you'll see what's coming. So a few things we want to improve is for data input, so a bit of harmonization of for the length of certain fields. So some of these are thanks to your input. So when you give us, when you raise issues in GitHub, that really helps us because it helps us figure out stuff and check and improve things. So some of those come into the SDKs themselves. So limit the length of certain fields. It's too long because there are obvious mistakes when people cut and paste. It's better if we can catch them. We would like to limit which fields have positive amounts, not all of them. And just these would be controls to make sure that result notices are more consistent. So to count how things are linked together. And then a few other rules for subtype 8, the voluntary pre-market consultation, energy efficiency directive, and a bit of regular expression harmonization. Code lists come with certain incremental changes. So for example, we will add Ukraine and Bosnia. They will get NUTS codes because they have NUTS codes. So we'll make sure they're available in the SDK. And then buyers from Ukraine and Bosnia will actually have to provide the NUTS codes, which provide better data. And then the usual continuous improvements to labels, translations, and view templates. Okay, so one of the changes that is coming in SDK 2 is what until now have been called unpublished fields. We actually spent some time on the terminology because today these fields are called unpublished or not immediately published or published later or privacy or withheld or confidential hidden. There's way too many names for it, so we want to standardize the names. The terminology we've come up with is around the word undisclosed. So non-disclosed, non-disclosure, because this term is the best word we find for what we're trying to do. So these are fields which are not made public. And the term like non-disclosure, you have like non-disclosure agreements. We have this terminology, and it should translate relatively well. When you choose to not disclose information, you are withholding the information. This is also a word which, at least in English, exists in even the directive, saying some information can be withheld. So these are the terms we will be using in future. So you can see the verbs and the nouns we will be using. And basically want to clean up references to all the other mix of terms. So what does this mean in practice? So for those of you who know about undisclosed fields, non-published fields, whatever, today there are 4 BTs which are linked to every field that can possibly be withheld. So if you want to not publish information, I don't know, about tender amount, you have to go to the tender amount and say, for this field, I don't want to publish this information. And for that field, you have to say why you're not publishing it. You might want to provide some text, and you can optionally provide a date when you will publish it, or you leave it empty if you never want to publish it. So it's a very heavy process that for every single field in every single lot, if needed, in the results, you have to mark them one by one by one, which means we have literally hundreds of fields because we have this group of 4 BTs for every field we're trying to withhold. The approach we are proposing is a big simplification. And we will have 4 fields that apply to the entire notice. So you get these 4 fields will only be listed once in the notice at the top of the notice, so not at each field. So first you will point to which group of fields you want to withhold. Here you can have more than one group. So this is the repeatable part. We'll see in the next slide which fields these could be. So instead of saying field by field, we have grouped them together because we'll see that in the next point. You will get one justification for why you are doing this, why you're withholding information. That's the same code list we have today, but you only say it once for the whole notice. If you want to add more description about that, you only say that once. And if you have a date that you want to publish the information, disclose it in the future, you only say it once. So we've seen that in practice when people are trying to withhold information, they're basically having to repeat the justification and the dates every time. There's almost no variety in dates, no variety in justification. It's very rare that there's any difference. So we thought, let's put it all at the top once. The buyer only has to give this information once. In the very unlikely case where you really want to have different dates or hide different information, you could split your result notice and say, okay, for this notice, I have these dates, and for this notice, I have different dates, because in one lot might be different from another lot, and you publish those separate, because in result notices, you can't publish lots separately. But that's such an edge case, we don't think will ever happen. So this is our big simplification. So from 500 plus fields to 4 fields. We make it easier for the user, and it should be easier. And then the fields which can be withheld. So today these are all fields that can be withheld today. And we decided that if you want to, for example, withhold the award criteria, today you would have to withhold all these individual BTs one by one. That's what you have to do today. Our conclusion is if you want to withhold award criteria, you want to withhold all the fields that's related to award criteria. So you only have to say one saying, just withhold award criteria. And then our system, TED Monitor behind the scenes, when you give that information the notice, we will mask all this information like we do today. So you only have to say once, it'll mask all the award criteria in all the lots in the entire notice. Just one instruction that will mask this information. There's still quite a lot of granularity. So you can have frame of value for the notice, for the group, for the lot result. You can withhold them separately. Notice value, tender value, some only have one field because they aren't linked to anything else. But the tender value, subcontracting is a bigger group because you put all the information together. Information about the reviews you might have had, the stats about reviews, the stats about submissions. You can withhold all of that. And information about the winner. This is just a decision if the winner was chosen, and you can withhold the reason you did not award. That is a possibility. So these groups are what we're proposing today. It's not finalized. We will be proposing this to the EXEP, the eForms community, to get a final decision in about a month's time. So we'll be posting this on GitLab so that we get feedback. And our intention is by the 27th of April, we should be meeting the member states in XSEP to get a final decision. That we would implement that in SDK 2.0 and the approach in general. But we're hoping there's no major objections. This will be refined. We also have some fields that today can be withheld, and we don't think it makes any sense to withhold some of this information. Like cross-border law, for some reason, we've lost track of why certain business terms were chosen to be undisclosed. Some really don't make sense, like procedure type in a result. There's no point hiding it then because you've already declared it in the competition notice. So, and we see that people aren't using this anyway. So we have this list of fields that we propose to remove the option to withhold them. So that would force people, if they fill them, that they would always be visible. We have one remaining issue, which is quite big, but we know it's popular, which will require a different approach or a bit more analysis, is we know that many buyers do not want to disclose the name and the details of the winner or even the non-winning organizations. So you want to provide it in the notice, but you don't want it to be public. So it'll come in the notice. It would be masked like all the other undisclosed fields. It would be available to the commission. It would be available possibly in another systems like PPDS or something like that for analysis, but it would not be published on TED. So it wouldn't be part of the public data. But the logic for withholding organizations is a bit more subtle because you're not just pointing to a bunch of fields. You have to point to a certain number of fields for organization in certain roles. So we need to analyze this a bit more. We'll see if we manage to find a suitable solution for 2.0, but otherwise we might do it later on. So we need to think a bit more how this can happen. There's a few side effects. And organization and roles in eForms is quite messy. So that's something we hope to clean up with the third amendment, but we'll see if we can do something before then. Anyway, we know this is an open issue, and we know this is popular, and we know that buyers have this need. So this would avoid organizations getting organization XXX. Very popular winning organization in Europe. Okay, yeah, so that was undisclosed fields. Let us know if you got any feedback. We're open to revising it a bit. And the idea is to wrap it up by next month. Okay, dynamic rules. So we've talked about dynamic rules for a while. As a concept, we will finally implement them in SDK 2.0, or at least the first wave of dynamic rules. So the concept of dynamic rules, just to be short, today all our validation is based on the information in the notice. So I look at the XML, and all the schematrons apply only to information in the XML. It has no concept of other notices outside of what you're in. Dynamic rules mean I'm in a notice and I can look at something outside, which might vary. So for example, today's date varies. It's outside the context of my notice itself. The main things we want to start controlling are between the current notice we're assessing and usually a previous notice of some sort. So the simplest case is I'm changing a notice, it's a change notice, and I want to compare it with the notice I'm changing. So in general, we are very permissive in what you're allowed to change compared to an original notice, but we do want to have some really basic checks that you're not changing something which is a mistake, basically. If you link to the wrong notice and you put a change, it's quite easy to then make that mistake. we want to do some basic checks that you're still talking about the same thing. So if we see change notice and original notice, we will check these 5 pieces of information to make sure it's the same. So you have to have the same notice subtype. If it's a competition notice 16, it still should be changing to 16. You should be in the same procedure identifier. You should be in the same procedure type. Your procedure nature should be the same. If you talk about services, it's still services. And if you've provided in one language, it should be the same in the new one. You should change the language. Or if you provided 2 languages, the change should also have 2 languages, and so on. So this dynamic rule is fairly clear to implement. Compare my current notice with the previous one, compare these 5 fields, and if they're not the same, you will be rejected. So here SDK 1.15 on 2.0 will be different. If you do some weird changes, 2.0 will pick you up. The static rules would apply, but the dynamic rules would give you errors, and you get the errors in schematron, so it'll be CVS-driven dynamic rules. We have a similar approach for contract modifications and original notice. So if you're doing a contract modification, say subtype 38, contract modification for Director 24, here the subtype must be different, of course, because you're referring to a result. But what we say about predefined group is it should be in the same family. So if I'm doing 38 subtype, that's the Director 24, I would assume I'm doing 29, there are a few others, from my same legal family, as it were. If I do a 38, which is 24, and I'm trying to do subtype modify a 30, that's not the same directive, I will get an error. So presumably in your systems, when you have these functions for changing or modifying, you will help the user to refer to the one they want before, so they won't make any mistakes. So we don't expect this is going to cause too much trouble for those of you who help the user through the process, but we want to make sure there are no deviations. If the systems are a bit too open, if you have options to provide XML that isn't generated by the system, we want to stop those. So contract modification should be in the same procedure. There's no procedure type in contract modification, so you don't check, and the nature and the languages are the same. So again, a fairly straightforward set of checks. And the final one we have is checking that the result notice refers to the right competition notice. Again, if I have result 29, I can only have a result 29 based on a 16, for example, or a subset of those of notice subtype. Procedure identifier, we're not going to control. It's the concept of procedure identifier is not that tight, so we're not going to control it yet. And even the link between competition notice and result notice, it's difficult to enforce completely. So at the moment, it's still possible to provide, for example, 2 competition notices in the same procedure identifier. Doesn't make sense, but we don't control that yet, so we haven't set up those rules. So if I'm in a result notice, I will look for a competition notice with the same procedure identifier, but I can only control it if I only find 1 competition notice, which should be the normal case. If I find multiple competition notices, there's a mess I cannot control at this stage. So we're going to come back to that in the future, see how we can tighten it up. So these rules would only apply if I find 1 correspondent competition notice. But then the procedure type must be the same, the nature and the languages must be the same. So we make sure you're not linking to something weird. And then finally, one dynamic rule will adapt. We actually have it today. We check that your dispatch dates, BT05 and BT803 if you use it. Currently, we say it has to be in 1 day before, which is a bit approximate. Here we can actually check that it's actually 24 hours. So that rule we checked today, dispatch date is 24 hours. As a reminder, dispatch date BT05 should be the date that the buyer has sent it to you as an eSender. And optionally, you can use BT803, which is the time you declare that you sent it to us through the eSender submission. There can be a gap, but we say 24 hours because we have 5 days to publish. So if you sit on a notice for too long, then we cannot respect the deal with the buyer who has submitted to you in good faith, assuming that you're going to pass it on fairly quickly. But we check that on 24 hours. The rule exists today, we're just making it refined because now with SDK2, we will have the function to check this. Okay, and one final point about the future. Almost finished. Just to give you a heads up of what we're working on internally, so this is not exposed to you at all yet. Don't worry, we'll keep you updated before anything happens for sure. What we're trying out is to use AI or algorithms to help us validate your notices. So those of you who've been with us from before eForms, I think that's most of you, you remember that before when you submitted a notice, on our side, you had to wait. We would publish them within 5 days. In those 5 days, we had an external contractor who read every notice in every language to check certain things. And then after 5 days, we would, on the 5th day, we would publish, but we might have come back to you with some rejections in between or some warnings in between. When we moved to eForms, we simplified this so we can publish faster, and we only have automatic validation by CVS. So now you can say as soon as possible, and you give it to us this morning. It'll be, well, today's Friday, it'll be there on Monday, so that's much quicker. But we are not checking, so we've lost the capacity to check the text fields, to understand the content and the meaning of every notice. So what we want is we get some machines to help us, some algorithms to look at the texts and tell us something about your notice. So we're just about to launch a prototype with our contractor to explore the checks on language, similarity, and meaning of scope. So on language, you tell us that the notice is in Greek, but 90% of your text is in English. That's not acceptable. We will reject it. So remember, we used to reject notices because of the language mix. We'll have a margin, a small number of margin that we would allow, but generally you can check quite easily. The machine can help us check quite easily if the text is in the language you have declared. Similarity is another check, which could be tricky, but we want to say how similar is the text in your notices with all the hundreds and thousands of other notices that are out there. So have you deviated in the words from the other ones in the same language? And then meaning or scope, and this is try to understand the text itself in its own right, and say, are you talking about that you are selling something? So we're talking about procurement, but we know some buyers, especially maybe the private ones working for public organization. In some cases, they're talking about selling something. Maybe a buyer saying, I'm selling buildings that I own. That's not right. That's not procurement. And in the text, this is often quite clear. If you're a human, you can read it. But we would reject those notices too. So the interface with the assistant, at least, all right, in an internal API, for every check you will get a confidence score, and then it will say which field is giving me this confidence score, and some explanation about what's going on. So in the simple case, imagine the language check will say you say it's in English, and the system says, this might be English, but to me it looks like 97% is French. So you'll say these fields are 97% French. and I need an explanation. You might have a confidence score saying the language is, so there the confidence score would be very low. And in that case, we would flag it for manual check. So there will be no machine rejections because of this assistant. Every rejection would be checked by a human, so our colleagues here at the publications office, to confirm if the confidence score is justified or not. So we'll have to work a bit. We'll work on that before to refine it a bit, but we'll have thresholds saying, okay, give me all the notices where the language is so much different from what has been declared. That'll be an easy check. On our side, we will open it. We'll say yes. That's obviously the wrong language. We will reject it. If it's given a confidence notice score, which is a bit on the edge, then we can say, okay, I see why the machine has picked it up, but actually it's going to be okay. We'll publish it anyway, and it would not get stuck. So this is basically what we're doing today with lawfulness checks. And CVS currently has 2 lawfulness checks. They're quite basic, saying, is this from outside the EEA or candidate countries? You will see some of those coming in already. When that happens, lawfulness checks today never block the submission of the notice. So your notice will come in. You'll send it when you want to. And every day on our side, in our production team, we check lawfulness checks. The stated quality assistant would be working the same way. We would get, it would only be a small number of notices because we know that, the vast number of notices are fine. Smaller notices getting low confidence scores, they'll be highlighted to our colleagues who can then check and reject or accept and give some reason for the acceptance or rejection. So we'll slow down the process, but today, for example, we process every day what's coming in. So even if today you get lawfulness check, if you send us a notice from the UK, for example, normally the same day we've checked it and it will catch the same export and it will be published no slower. So we'll have to get that threshold so that we can process enough notices every day so we don't slow down the process excessively. But it might take an extra day to be published in some cases. So that's our intention. So the prototype will take another 4 to 5 months. So if we start it soon, we'll probably get the results during the summer, a little bit later. And then depending on what came out, if we need to train the system a bit more, we will see if we do something in production, but it's unlikely anything's going to happen before the end of this year. So we'll keep you updated how things are going on, but it's more something we'll implement next year. But we might have some results we can share with you during this year. Maybe we can try it out with published notices and see if we can see what's already been published that has slipped through, and maybe share some results with you so we can improve this. So again, the volume, I expect the volume of bad notices is quite low, but we do want to catch things that might slip through. So, okay, that's what's happening on side. Right, looking further ahead. So this is more on behalf of our colleagues in the Commission in Brussels. It's pretty crazy times for them. They got asked by, well, all the way down from the President of the Commission and with Vice President Séjourné, who looks after the internal market, to revise the EU public procurement framework. So this part is exclusively about directives 23, 24, 25. So the 3 main public procurement directives. In DG Grow, they have evaluated it, the 2014 directives that was published in October. There was a public consultation about what is needed in the future. They got, I think, 2,000 replies, call for evidence. So yeah, hundreds of pieces in input. They've been working very hard to have an impact assessment on what would be changed, of the different options that could be proposed. And the output of all of that on a very short timeline, is to have a proposal for Public Procurement Act. Is it a directive or regulation? That's not decided yet, but that would be come in June 26th. That would be within the Commission, so it's not public. The impact assessment would be known, so you can see what has been assessed, what are the options, and what are the impact of all the options. After that, it goes into the Commission. I think it goes into the member states, so it's going to take a couple of years before anything major happens. But yeah, that's busy at the Commission to get something out. The main, I think Mark Christopher showed that in TED Together in December. So there's big aims for simplification. There are aspects like buying European, so given a European preference, that's very political, that's quite complicated, and generally lightening the process for public procurement. There is in parallel, so it's a different Director General of the Commission for the Defence Directive, that's also been revised. They also had a consultation that closed a bit after the internal market one. But within the Commission, they're keeping in contact to try and keep the core functions. The processes could be or should be the same or very similar, even if defense has a bunch of other issues that need to be handled. That's why it's done apart. So expect changes in the next few years. Our big hope is simplification will work out. So, but there'll be also a lot of work on a digital marketplace that will involve you. And as the information can be shared, we will share with what is stable. I mean, at the moment it changes, not changes every week, but every week it evolves internally. So bear with us, especially our colleagues in Brussels. It's very busy for them. Okay, almost wrapped up. So what's up? These are events that we have planned with you for others. So some of you might be data reusers. So this is using the data that's published on TED, the XML, the open data service that we've shown a couple of times. The next one's on the 20th of May. So the information will be published, has its own website. If you want to get picked up, if you go to the developer portal and tick the reuser box, that'll mean we'll inform you as well to register. So keep an eye on that. This meeting, the next meeting will be 18th of June. So by June, as you've seen, you'll also see with Yanis in the next meeting. We'll tell you a lot more about 1.15 and 2.0, like where we are, if the dates are still on track and the content. And we'll see you again after the summer. And for those of you who have an eSender profile, well, in fact, you all have an eSender account in the developer portal. Otherwise, you don't get your API key and you wouldn't be sending us anything or validating anything. But we do encourage you to create a public profile, which if you click here, you can actually see it on TED as well. So you can be listed there and explain yourself. I mean, some of you are commercial, you have an interest in being on the market and that people come to you. And that's very good for your users. For those of you who are public and you have a monopoly, it's still good that buyers in your country can know that you exist and a basic piece of information about you. So it also helps us if someone comes to us and say, oh, I'm from this country, how can I submit notices? We can point buyers to the right eSender or a choice of eSenders in each country. So we encourage you to have a public one. And then finally, okay, November, it's months away, but we want to meet again. TED Together, we've got about 50 slots to come in person and the rest of you online. You come and see us in Luxembourg. And the Q&A, we just published that yesterday. So the questions and answers from that event are now online on the website where we had the agenda and the presentations are there. And there's also a video of that. Okay, I'll finish now because that will give Yanis more time to delve into SDK2. Lots of goodies there. The usual contacts here. And okay, I haven't checked Slido questions, but I will leave it there. So I suggest we keep moving. So, Yanis, if you would like to take over. You're muted, but we can see you.
Thank you, Carl. What can I say? You are more and more with your presentation going to a lot of detail.
I can't hear you too well. Yeah, we can see you.
You cannot hear me. You cannot hear me too well.
I can't hear you. Yeah, okay, but if you speak clearly, I think it's okay.
I will try to speak louder, yes.
Okay.
My microphone is not the best.
Okay.
So I was just joking a little bit that, you know, you're providing so much detail. There's no need for me to go into too much. Maybe we should rethink what we're going to do in the future. Maybe we should do, you know, more technical workshops, but those will need to be more interactive. I don't know.
Yeah. No, but your presentation has all the technical goodies, so.
Well, it doesn't really have much.
It does.
That's what I'm trying to say, but that's okay.
That's good.
I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah.
I hope you can. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, sounds good now.
Yeah. So hello everyone. Well, I'm not going to go actually into too much detail, and I will finish quite shortly. Most of our efforts are still in making things rather than presenting them. So I will be able to give you answers to questions later. I will take you through where we are and what is next quickly. So yesterday, let me see what my presentation is not moving. Yesterday we released a few of the artifacts that are related to our efforts to complete the work on SDK2. I realized that SDK2 Alpha 1, when we were releasing Alpha 2 yesterday, I realized that SDK2 Alpha 1 came 3 years ago. So this has been postponed for too long. We released SDK2 Alpha 2. I will give you more details about it. And the new version of the eForms core library that supports the new stuff that is in the SDK2. A new version of the toolkit, the notice viewer sample application, and the new tool that new command line tool that helps out with working with EFX. I will tell you about it. So what is in SDK2 Alpha 2? There is the latest version of the EFX grammar, which is very close to its final state. Let me just rearrange the windows on my. Okay, here, sorry. It's very close to its final state. There is for first time since Alpha 1, and that was the main reason that we didn't release Alpha 2 for all this time. There is actually updated SDK metadata that use EFX2. So Alpha 1 just only had a copy of the grammar, but this time we have exported a proper SDK, and you will see EFX2 in all the locations in the SDK where you expect to find the effects. So in this JSON, in the visualizations, the rules, etc. And you will also see in this release a first attempt to export and include in the SDK the new forward compatibility files, which I talked to you about in November. So there is, I don't know if you remember, and I didn't plan to explain this again. I didn't want to really repeat myself about this, but maybe I should recap what is the forward compatibility thing. So the general idea here is that SDK2 is for us a transitional version of the SDK, and transitional doesn't mean that the transition will be short. The transition will be long enough, but it's transition between the first SDK that we were able to put together under the pressure of the release of eForms a few years back, and an SDK that encapsulates all this experience that we have accumulated over the years, which will be SDK3 sometime in the future. So the SDK2 has the idea of let's fix EFX, let's encapsulate all the experience that we have accumulated, so that we create a language that is more mature for our use, and let's give the people, the eSenders, a way of going from SDK1 to SDK3 through a transitional SDK that includes both full compatibility with SDK1, but also introduces the things that and the concepts that will be used to replace the outdated SDK1 structures and concepts when sometime in the future the SDK3 comes. So this is the idea of the forward compatibility. And therefore, I will highlight here my screen just so that I can focus your eyes. So therefore, you will see that in the fields folder, you will find the fields JSON file, but which is the one that you know. But also in the fields folder, you will find the forward FWD subfolder, where there's another fields JSON file. And that one is going to be a bit different than the classical one, because it will only contain fields this time. It's not going to be as huge. It will drop all the obsolete properties, and it will introduce some new ones. The nodes have been moved to a separate file so that we don't jam everything together in one. The business entities will be in a separate file. All these things were in the old one. A separate file about data types. I'm not going to go to detail there, but not having data types defined clearly in FX1 and SDK1 was really a problem for FX. So there are going to be several files added here. Let me remove my highlighter. I will give you a bit more details later. I hope everything is all right, Carl, and I hope that I'm heard clearly. Can you give me some feedback? Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, keep speaking clearly.
All right.
Yep.
So there is a new version of the core library. Okay, basically it does the usual stuff that the core library used to do, but updated to support SDK2. So you can use it to discover and download new SDK versions and load the SDK resources and access them at runtime. And also it includes some common tools for working with the SDK XML. There is a new version of the toolkit that implements all the features of the language in EFX2. And as I told you back in November, we have this new flavor of the EFX language, which is for authoring rules. I'll give you a bit more details in the past about what that means. In the past, I will give you a little bit more details in a while about what that means. So the toolkit implements all these new specifications of the grammar. Of course, it translates to expanded schematron and XSLT as it used to. While the schematron thing is new, basically the schematron was generated directly from our metadata database, but currently schematron is in SDK2, it's generated from the rules file, which is in EFX. It also extracts dependency graphs. So dependency graphs are a way, basically it's a JSON file that indicates all the dependencies for validating or computing calculated fields. So if you have a field that requires the value of several other fields or the presence of specific nodes or code lists in memory in order to be validated, this dependency graph tells you the forward and reverse lookup what dependencies needs to be loaded so that you can run the validation in memory. We removed the preprocessor and we try to move all the type checking to the standard processor of EFX so that it translates the file with a single pass instead of doing two passes as it used to be in the past. This will make it faster. And we added the ability to include files so that files are better organized in EFX since it tends to produce very large files. Then we have the notice viewer. Okay, this was updated to implement the new EFX2 template language features, and supports also the new summary and navigation views that are included in EFX templates. And of course, its role is to demo the implementation of EFX to XSLT and subsequently to HTML transformation. You can find all these things in GitHub. Then we added, I think, a small command line tool that is just making it easier for us to test and work with the EFX toolkit without having to have implemented a full application. So the CLI basically it's a command line interface for the toolkit. You can call it to validate notices and get the results. So simulate having a validator. To visualize notices, so it calls behind the scenes, it calls them the viewer. To translate EFX rules to schematron. To extract the dependency graph. Currently, the dependency graph is not published in A2. We just didn't have enough time until yesterday that we wanted to publish it to include it, but it's going to be there in the next release, and you can already see it and extract it using the CLI. And in general, it has an interactive shell with autocomplete. It doesn't have too many functions, not too complicated, so developers will find it useful, and you can pick it up in GitHub. So basically that's what we've released. Now, what is in there and what's the point of all this? First of all, as this thing evolves, EFX, we realize that it's not longer just an expression language. In the beginning, what it was conceived in order to express the logic of computing a yes or no result for validation, and that's how it was mostly used in SDK1. We also in SDK1 added a very basic templating language, but at this point in time, EFX has evolved from that, it is still the EFX expressions are still at the core of the language, but now EFX has a much safer to write strict type system that prevents all sorts of mistakes that we realized that were in EFX expressions and ambiguities in all the versions of SDK1. It is more portable because we tried specifically to eliminate all the biases that EFX1 had from XPath and make sure that whatever EFX1 supports can be ported to JavaScript, Python, C#, Swift. I know that some eSender is using Swift. So we made sure to remove the things that are pointless from EFX and hard to port in translators. And it's generally more readable. The EFX templates are also much more rich. They include embedded summary and navigation views, and they can overcome all the limitations that we had with EFX1. I'll tell you a few more details in a while. And of course, the EFX rules are not just a bunch of EFX expressions pulled together into a schematron file. It's a full expressive language that can express the rules with all their additional information in one file, and it is portable to validation engines beyond schematron, and it enables live validation in interactive validation scenarios like when a user is filling a form. And of course, also this time includes a more practical dynamic rule validation. EFX1 had some features for dynamic rules, but they were never really there was never really enough time to test them before we released the EFX1, and we never used them. This time we have implemented it, and it's there. You will see it in the implementation when you go to GitHub. We have an implemented system with which we can run validation rules in a sensible manner, and we can extend dynamic validation throughout the lifetime of SDK2 and beyond, without having to issue new major versions of the SDK. Well, I don't know, maybe I told you all these things about the portability, for example, in SDK2 of EFX expressions. We had some really unnecessary stuff there, like axes that were borrowed from XPath. We never used them. They're totally not portable to other systems, so we dropped them. We had regular expressions that were tied to the XPath definitions. We also made sure that we also made sure to create an EFX regex subset, which is portable, and so expressions that use EFX expressions that use regular expressions for matching values can now be ported to different regular expression engines like Java or JavaScript, etc. And they do not contain features that are not portable. The built-in functions that we have in EFX have also been enriched. So that the language can do calculations that were not possible before. But in order to do them, we had write much more complicated expressions. And of course, the type system, which was very basic in eFX1, is now fully developed. It differentiates between scalar values and sequences clearly. It looks, it checks the repeatability of fields, not just based on the definition, but also based on context. So, for example, you might reference a repeatable field from a context where it does not repeat. And in that case, you can treat this as scalar, and the language will not warn you that you're making a mistake. But if you reference a repeatable field from a context where a scalar is expected, and the field repeats from that context, then the language will warn you. And so, therefore, this is very helpful for us to write rules that execute correctly and to catch mistakes when we create new versions of the SDK, rather than finding them later in production and realizing that we rejected notices that should not have been rejected, or accepted notices that should not have been accepted. Likewise, in eFX templates, there also we didn't have enough time in that summer of 22, where we were trying to close the eFX design and release the SDK to do a job with the sophistication that the task requires. So eFX template language was very basic. The whole concept and design of the language was too simplistic for the task. It was too complicated, or also practically impossible to pass context around. So you had to recalculate the context while rendering the template. And there was no way for us to optimize the performance of the output. So in very, very big notices, we had difficulty escaping the timeouts of servers. But in SDK2, we had the time to look at all these problems and address them. And now, with the introduction of variables, we can pass context around, reduce the necessary computation, make the expressions easier to write and read. We added dictionaries that allow us to do faster lookups and optimize the performance of the output XSL. We added reusable templates and a number of other improvements that allow us to have friendlier, faster, and more accurate visualizations in the SDKs that we will release in the versions of the SDK that we will release under SDK2. And of course, like I said earlier, we added this new rules flavor of the language. And I told you before that in the current SDK, SDK1, we use eFX for the rules, but we only use them to express the test that the rule has to perform and the condition, so the precondition. So we say, okay, compute this precondition, and if it is true, check this. And that's the only use that we had for eFX in rules. But that's not enough, because a rule has a lot of additional information. So we didn't capture, for example, in eFX, not even the identifier of the rule, the severity, the message, all this information was encoded in this JSON, in a JSON format, and somebody had to put it together, and in a schematron. So the only executable thing that you could do was to use either schematron or write some system that figures this out from fields JSON. For the rules that are applicable in there, because not all the rules appeared there. So in eForms2, we have this new flavor of the language where we can express the entire thing in concise and concrete rules, which can be read, understood, and maintained by people that don't have to be so technical. But also, most importantly, we can now use a translator to port them to engines beyond Schematron and generate live validation engines in JavaScript, for example. So for us, this has enabled a lot of improvements in validation. And of course, based on this, we also implemented a dynamic rules system. So we hope that all this is going to be helpful for you too. For us, certainly it is necessary in order to create SDKs that have less issues and can be used across our systems. So this will enable us, for example, to add proper live validation in Node.js2, which will improve the user experience in Node.js2, and we hope that you will have the same benefits in your systems. Any among any centers among you that decide using systems. So what is left to do? There's a lot of work.
Yanis, your audio is.
My audio. What happened with my audio?
Okay, it's back again. You seem to have gone off into a tunnel. You're back.
Okay, thank you. So there's a lot of work that has been put into those business entities. I know that people really naturally would find it hard to justify them. For us, they're terribly important in order to achieve the so much needed alignment between the ontology and eForms. And they're also very much needed in order to simplify the way we access fields. I'm not going to give you too many details about it inside this currently, but unless you ask me to show you things about them. But the basic idea is there's about 90 to somewhere between 90 and 100 business entities that are going to be needed, and they have been created, and they're used to compose an entire notice. And from you can write expressions that use business entities which point to the same locations as fields point to. The expressions that result from this are way more readable. You are not going to see the business entities for a while in the expressions, although they're going to be there, and you will be able to switch between business entities and fields notation with an automatic behind-the-scenes translation. So we hope that they will be your preferred method in the future. But regardless of that, for us, business entities are extremely important in order to rationalize the design of the SDK and to bring together the implementations of eForms and the procurement ontology. So that's work that is going on, and we hope to get this work into the SDK Beta 1. Another thing is the forward compatibility files that you will find in the FWD folders are not finalized. So we will be working on them. They're just now mostly copies, split copies of what existed before. So we're working on them, and the final versions are not yet included in SDK Alpha 2. So that's another piece of work that's happening now. Carl talked about the simplifications for fields that are withheld from publication. Also, this is work that is going to be happening in April and possibly beyond. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to include this in beta 1, although we will certainly try. In general, there are some refinements and cleanups that we need to do in the grammar so that it's polished and ready for release. So Carl already talked about this. I will just confirm this, I guess. So we're trying to get to a better one, either by middle of April or end of April. We will see how efficient we are in completing the remaining work. The remaining work is not trivial, but it's also work that is underway. So we're not going to start now on this. We're already have been working on these things, and we're going to try to finalize them and include them in beta 1. And our hope is to get this beta 1 sometime in the second half of April release. After beta 1, it's very unlikely to have any changes in the grammar. And we will also remove any EFX legacy syntax from EFX1 just to keep the ambiguities of the parser to a minimum and allow it to parse FX files as fast as possible. Carl told you about 115. The vision is to have it done and released right before we release the SDK2 release candidates. The general idea is that after we go to beta, we will take a couple of months to work with our contractors and our teams internally in order to gather and incorporate feedback on the SDK and finalize any changes in the grammar and the files. At the same time, we would like to get any feedback from you. I don't know if you will be able to have time to give us feedback, but any feedback will be welcome and very much appreciated. The idea is that if we can release a release candidate of SDK2 sometime in July, beginning, middle, then we will have enough time to implement all the SDK2 improvements in the OJS apps, which will verify that everything is good enough. And after we have implemented the improvements in the OJS apps and we make sure that there are no gaps, sometime in September, hopefully, we will be able to release SDK2. Luckily, there are no business agencies that constrains this to September. So if we need more time, we will take more time. But we don't want to drag this too long, because the amount of work and focus that is required to complete this work is large, it's huge, basically. So yeah, we need to finish this, and we're really working concentrated. All the people that are involved in this, and there's several people that are involved in this, we're fully concentrated in getting this done with top priority. So we will see if we make it for September. You'll get an update from us again on where we are in our next meeting in May. And like I said in the beginning, I think we should, after we finish with the beta, etc., maybe we should organize some more technical workshops. So instead of creating a big eSenders workshop where everybody shows up and we talk about everything, maybe we should organize something smaller and more focused and more technical, where we can open the mics, open the cameras, see each other, discuss, and talk about subjects that technical subjects that developers from the eSenders side need. So more like a real workshop rather than this format, which is more like a presentation. But this has not been discussed. I think it will be useful if you also need it after we're done with the beta. I think we should do it and organize it, subject, of course, to what my colleagues think about this. So I'm just throwing this out for you to consider. If you really need it, I'm positive in considering something like this. I think that's it. I don't know how fast it was, but it really felt much less, Carl, than what you put together. So that's it from me.
Thanks, Yanis. No, there was plenty there. It's I think I agree with what you said about maybe having a specific workshop after the beta, maybe in May, when people have a chance to digest it. I know for the registration form, we asked everyone how they assessed the impact on them of VFX for visualization or for rules. So we have an idea of the ones who might want to have a bit more hands-on, where you can dive into the code or into the syntax, so you can get feedback saying this is useful. I can imagine that. That would allow more hands-on questions. And then there'll be a bunch of us.
Has disappeared, and I don't know where is the whole thing.
Sorry?
But I can stop my share. My WebEx window has disappeared for some reason.
Yeah, there's a share that.
I'm sharing from here anyway.
Yeah, that's good. You stopped sharing. That was it. Yeah, WebEx has a share that goes all over the place. Okay, no, but that's great. We get I mean, I know in these meetings that people are more interested in the business stuff, the broader stuff. Some are more interested in the technical stuff. I think it's good that all of us pay attention to the more technical side, so at least we hear the concepts and understand them as well, even if we don't have to get our hands dirty with the details. So
one of the things that I didn't say before, just wanted to add. Anyway, I'm half in my time, so I can add something, right?
Yep.
Even in a conversational.
Yes.
One of the things that I didn't say is that we didn't publish the SDK2 documentation. There is a page that has a summary doc for SDK2, but we did not publish it. However, we are doing a thorough job in documenting it, and it will be published. Whatever we have, we will publish it with beta 1, and the complete documentation will be migration guides, etc. will be in together with RC definitely there. So for people that are justified to worry about where is the documentation, yeah, well, it's still behind the scenes, but it will come with beta 1 as much as we have, and the whole thing. So there's people, for example, rightfully complaining, where is the documentation for business entities? Yeah, so it will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why feedback can also feed into it. So
yes,
because if we get certain questions to say, okay, this obviously is not so clear, you can provide more about the parts which are more subtle.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We've got plenty of time. We've got a few questions, but let's see. I'm just checking our script. We have some Slido questions. So we've got some questions for our audience to answer. I think Jenny, Yule, we can share the Slido again. Where is it? You're on Slido anyway, so you should be getting the questions. Oh. My thinks. Okay, so the question now, if you go to Slido, I can't share it, but the question up now in Slido is how useful was the presentation for about eForms business issues? To see if we're hitting the mark. As usual, yeah. We know the audience varies according to your interest. This is the two. Okay, it should be okay for now. Let's switch to the next one. So how useful for Janice's presentation about technical issues, basically SDK2. That's the detailed one. And there's more details. Yeah, I think the idea of a workshop is good, Janice. If you're willing to host it, we'll get it. Okay, I think 2021 answers is representative. So now we'll get to a question which is a bit more hands-on. So next question, we have 3 questions. So your 3 questions, one about what is the impact, how much do you expect to be affected by SDK 2 regarding rules and validation? So we're repeating the questions we asked at registration, but we can get some live replies. So are you affected by EFX2 for rules and validation, for viewed templates and visualizations, and by unpublished non-disclosure information? So basically what we showed you this morning. Give us a feeling of how much you're going to be impacted from no, minor, medium, major. Or if you don't know, you can also put don't know, but so we get a feeling for how you're going to deal with SDK2 for these 3 issues. I'll give it a moment so you can think about it. I guess hopefully you were thinking about it already a bit as you saw the presentations. And that would also get us a feeling for those of you out there. Okay, so this is the ongoing results for view templates and visualization. So if you're using the EFX for viewing notices, then the change in EFX2 will have an impact on you. I guess it could be not applicable means that you don't use EFX. So that would say you don't need to care about it. Maybe use the API. For rules and validation, this is a big impact, which is, I guess, good because the FX2 will have quite a lot of changes.
If I may interrupt you.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
If there are eSenders that are generating visualization from EFX templates, and they have their own compilers, then there will be some impact. They will need to update them, and the language is much richer, so therefore they will need to implement, new stuff in order to cover the differences in language. Of course, we will be in a position to guide and help them with documentation or talking to them. Those that are using the EFX toolkit, so those that are on Java, are going to find it much easier because the implementations are already provided, and there's a few customizations to be done in the notice viewer, possibly for the templates and all that stuff, but it will be much easier. And of course, everybody else that just uses a service like that viewer, so the API, etc. Okay. In this case, there is nothing to adjust. You just use the service that does that produces visualizations directly based on on the visualizations that we provide in the SDK. So yeah, there will be some impact. For rules, nobody's using them because it's new. So everyone that will need to translate rules, and I'm sure that everybody would like it because they will be able also to add their own rules and use the same system. So gradually, I think that more and more people will use that. Well, there again, people that are in Java, they can reuse what we publish. People that are not in Java will have to create translators. When we're going to do the work for live validation for Node.js 2, the JavaScript validator that we're going to create for that is extracting from rules and all the translation for that, we're going to share it with the eSenders. So this, I think this will help people get live validation in their systems where JavaScript is applicable.
Yes, that's a good one. So yeah, so rules, a lot of inclusion. And what do you have now? Ah, yes, unpublished non-disclosure. Okay, a third of you are impacted. So yeah, the usage of undisclosed information is quite variable. So we know some of you implemented, some of you don't. But yeah, I could say more than half of you are definitely going to be using it. So that's good to know. This will allow us to, well, just to assess, to have a feeling of what's coming on. So, okay, then I suggest we go to the questions, and we'll work from a chronological point. So we'll start with the first questions we do first and just go through chronologically. We see your votes, so it's good to know your interest, but it's easier to handle them one by one so we don't miss them. So I've got some questions, and behind the scenes, my colleagues write some nice answers for me, so I can just read them out. So a question from about the viewer. So we recently figured that there's a limitation on TED regarding the number of lots. So notices with more than 1,250 lots cannot be displayed. And do we plan to check the number of lots with the APIs? So we won't be limiting the number of lots that you could submit, but when you visualize, there is a limitation of 1,250 lots. So if you go beyond that, you can't see it directly in the browser, but you can download the HTML and the PDF, and you will be able to see it online. So it's just that the browser will limit seeing it embedded on the screen. So that is a limitation indeed that exists, but it doesn't stop you from submitting them. And if you download them, you can still see them. Okay, the next question, what are unpublished fields and dynamic rules in 2.0? So I think this was about 20 past 10. I believe I covered that in the presentation, and hopefully that was clear enough. So that was probably from the agenda. Okay, the next one. Do you plan to implement stricter validation rules for the Clean Vehicle Directive fields? So in which SDK versions will we have stricter rules? For now, the CVD rules are stable. The fields are stable. We're not planning to touch them. SDK 1.15 or 2.0. So no, the ones we have seem to work. But if you think we should have some stricter rules, then please let us know, and we can have a check. We can assess them and see with the Commission and the member states if we put them in a future release. If you want the 1.15, let us know as soon as possible, because pretty much 1.15 scope is what you saw on the screen, and even some of those 1.15 rules, if we don't get an agreement next month, we're not going to implement them. So let us know. Is it possible to add another notice official language through a change notice? So normally it's not allowed, once you pick your languages, you stick with them. There's not actually a rule that stops you today, technically, but in SDK 2.0, as you saw, one of those dynamic rules will mean it's no longer possible. We'll actually compare your change with the previous one and say, no, you gave us 2 languages, you stick to those 2 languages, or you gave us 1 language, you stick to that language. So your choice of language is pretty fixed from the start. So it's better to get it right first time. So for the lifespan, so SDK 1.12 is extended lifespan until 31st of October confirmed. The roadmap is not up to date. Thanks a lot. Indeed, we haven't updated the roadmap on the page, and we haven't extended the CVS range yet. We basically just confirmed it 2 days ago, and we wanted to present it today, just in case there was any major response. But yeah, we'll update the roadmap and the CVS range this afternoon, early next week. So we'll confirm that. So yes, it is confirmed. We'll confirm it technically as well. So Aitor, about dynamic roles. It feels like you are moving from an approach based on loosely connected notices to something more solid, where there's a common backend across notices and notices read and write into it. Is this somehow a fair statement? From a business point of view, the notices are not loosely connected. So there is a sequence of notices which should be respected. You shouldn't change stuff. So what we're doing with dynamic rules is we're actually trying to check that what is business common sense is actually respected. So technically, we're comparing one notice with another. That's what we're doing, but that should be happening anyway. So notices within a procedure should have a certain amount of common features.
I think that it is somehow a fair statement, Carl. I think this is the answer here. The notices are not really, fused into one backend, but yes, we have them.
Technically,
and
yeah.
And we are going to cross-check them. That's the general idea, on the basis of mostly of notices too. Indeed, the fact that the notices are basically islands by themselves and they're not connected in any way makes this very hard, and it is a problem that we encounter immediately right after collection. So this dynamic rules is one of the steps that we're going to take in order to make sure that at collection time we at least check that the new notice coming in makes sense in relation to the previous ones. But this is not the only part of the problem of every notice being an island. It follows us through all the way to publishing the data in the open data service. And there is several steps that we're taking in order to connect all this information. So yeah, I think the statement is fairly it's reasonably fair. Yes.
Yeah, at a technical level, yes. Yes, so I was just putting in the chat in WebEx. So the status of lots, if they've been removed, awarded, that's likely the next step. We've seen that in UK's portal. Yeah, for dynamic rules, it won't change fundamentally for lots. We do have a problem with lots in general because the identification of lots is a bit of a free-for-all Wild West. You say you give an identifier in the if you say you got lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your competition notice. Today we cannot guarantee that lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will exist in the results notice. So unless you are disciplined on your side in your systems, in the data itself, we have no guaranteed way to link them together. So we're thinking internally in the longer term or in the medium term, should lots have a unique identifier as well, which is the same all the way through the procedure. Seeing as lots are so big in eForms, you can't just leave it so open. Yeah, so yeah, I think we can do more dynamic rules. We might need to improve also the data that's collected. So, but indeed, we'll have the tools to do it. Yeah, we're on the same page. Yeah. So the ones we're putting in are quite easy. Historically, I think, what is it? Notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 has always been very popular as a previous notice. People publish a result and just link to competition notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because it was required. That was in the old TED XML. And yeah, if you're pointing to rubbish, then obviously you're just trying to cheat the system. So these dynamic rules then, do you actually have the same language, or do you have the same main nature? Then just that check alone will avoid really stupid mistakes. But yeah, dynamic rules is something we have to build on progressively. So 2.0 will have some really basic ones because they're sort of really common sense ones, but it would be nice to do better ones because the linking of data is quite weak in the terms of the rules we have. We depend a certain amount that in your systems, you're guiding the users through. So if the system is well structured, it's unlikely the user will make a mistake. So your buyer will just say, okay, award this lot. And you copy your data across, so it's going to be the same. So that would be, it should be okay. But with dynamic rules, we can catch the obvious ones. Okay, so the version range, also from Ito, yeah. So version range, that is formally the source of truth for SDK versions, but it gives limited information. It only tells when the status quo entered terms and when it finishes. Could this be changed with the table of SDK versions and allowed use until? This would be better information for you to plan. So indeed, the version range provides information only on the next foreseen change, when an SDK version will be removed or added. So if you've got a suggestion for how we could change that specific structure for the JSON file, you can post it on GitHub. Maybe that would be a good place to discuss indeed. And then the information about longer term changes is available in the docs in the docs that Jenny's just posted. So the version lifespan. So in the docs themselves, you can see it, but the version range JSON file, we could adapt, yeah, if there's something that you think would be useful.
This is also something Carl and Jenny, we should add a page that reads this API in the developer portal and presents it in a more, so that somebody doesn't have to call the API. Somebody can go to the portal and look at a page that displays the information from the API directly. So
Yes.
if we get a feature improvement from an eSender that tells us, this is what we would like to see, we can take it into account, update the API, and also add a page that displays the result directly in the developer portal so that it's handy for everyone.
Yeah, it's unambiguous. So you don't have to call an API to get it. But yeah, like Ito says, the API would also need to have the information about end dates.
Well, I think the information in the API should be enough, but let's see the complete proposal. And from the information that we have in the API, we can construct a page that presents this information in a concrete way. Because indeed, by looking at the JSON, you need to do a bit of mind-bending tricks to understand.
Yeah, every time I look at it, I have to think again. So.
Yeah, I think the information is already there. Let's look at the complete proposal and let's put the page in the developer portal for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Ito, for the feedback. Can do something. Okay, this is about the data quality system. The next one, is it possible to provide the planned AI-assisted validation to eSenders in order to be implemented in their systems? So, yeah, as an idea, I would like to do that. So it would be good if the data quality assistant could be available to external users through an API, like CVS. In the end, it's a form of validation. But I would be very cautious because it's not going to happen in the near future. First, we want to be confident the tool's working okay. and to make sure we have the performance that would allow many more coming in. So if the prototype goes well and we implement it in our TED monitor system, that means we only need to call it like 3,500 times a day, only for the notices being submitted. It would happen after submission, so it wouldn't need to respond immediately like CVS. And it's only when it reaches TED monitor, we would call the assistant. It would give us the confidence scores, and in this back end, it would go for checks or not, so that there would be a slight delay from you submitting it to getting the response saying this is going to manual check or not. So when you imagine the emails that are sent to the buyer saying it was submitted successfully, and then it says it's got an expected publication date, that usually means that there's no further checks going on, and it's scheduled for publication. That's easier to manage than if we exposed it to you, and everyone's calling it, not unlimited times, but a lot more volume, and you're expecting to get a response at a certain speed. So I would say, as an idea, yes, but not yet.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
Yeah.
what we want to. That the general vision is that we will do it, but
yes,
we don't have it yet, and it's not tested yet. There's no point in making any such promises.
Yeah.
We first get the system implemented, get it beyond the POC stage, see how it affects our own validation. And yes, of course, when the system is in production, yeah, we will of course share it either as a service or as or possibly we might open source we'll consider at that point in time what is the most efficient way to share this validation step with eSenders.
Yeah.
So that's part of the vision anyway.
Yeah. And we want you to have the same information that we're working on. A bit like CVS, you know exactly the rules that we're applying, so then you could help your users avoid mistakes earlier on before they submit. Yeah, indeed. I mean, I know most of you, I don't know if they call CVS or you apply your schematrons before you submit it to us. We see very few rejected notices coming through because you validated on your side. So again, if you could help your users with warnings before, then it's less likely there would be warnings with low confidence on our side, and then less likely that one of us has to validate them one by one. So we have an interest in you getting that in your hands too. But yeah, performance, and let's see what's happening. So regarding the planned data quality AI assistant, do we have an internal AI model we're planning to use, or will we use an external model like Claude or ChatGPT, etc.? Well, that's actually part of the prototype we're going to run. So we're asking our contractor to try things out and see which ones work. I don't think we'll be using general GPTs like that, from my understanding. But yeah, we'll let you updated once the prototype's got a bit further. So we're exploring what's possible. So the contractor has some ideas,
but it's going to be a mixed. Sorry,
yeah,
Carl.
yeah, please.
It's going to be a mixed approach, and we're trying to, at this point in time, we're trying to determine what will be the mix of AI technologies that we're going to include. At the end of it, most likely there will be some GPT like Claude or ChatGPT or something even friendlier to us and friendlier to sovereignty and all that stuff that are floating around in these days. But yeah, at the end of it, there will be something like a generative AI that, like an LLM, that will put in a sentence the findings of any other models that I will in the process and say this notice has been flagged for this reason as a suspicious notice that should be reviewed by a human.
Yeah.
So yeah, there will be something like that, but we are trying to find out currently. That's where we are. We're trying to determine the mix of technologies that are going to be used there.
And yeah, there's plenty of AI issues we have to tackle. Right now, we're tackling the internal governance for AI projects at the Commission. So we're going to make sure we align with the AI Act of the Commission, for example. We can't just go out and do some crazy stuff. We're relatively low risk. We're not doing anything crazy. But indeed, a notice that hasn't been published yet is not published yet. So yeah, going to be easy with who we're sharing that information with and what the model's going to do with them. So it's better if we use our own models on our own platforms. Okay, we need the redesign of unpublished fields earlier. We expected to get them with SDK 1.15, but SDK 2.0 does not fit the timeline. Why did we put it in 2.0? I mean, the first reason we put it in 2.0 is that technically it's a major change. So for that reason alone, we had to go to 2.0. I mean, otherwise we'd have 1.15 would have been 2.0 just for that, and then we'd have SDK 3 for EFX2. In the end, the timing for 1.15 and 2.0 are quite similar. So technically, that's why we couldn't do it. So you will see 2.0 with non-disclosed fields already in a release candidate by July. So that's basically the same timing as 1.15. So you can start development already against it. So you're not losing that much time. 1.15 will be in production before 2.0, just so it's out there, because the rules and whatever changes are there. But yeah, I think in July, even in June, July, you can already start developing. And when 2.0 is out, you can use it. So you're not losing that much time. But yeah, technically there was no choice. We couldn't do it in SDK 1. That I know we said last September we wanted to do it, but when we looked closer, we couldn't hack it in just like that.
Well, if I may jump in again, Carl,
yeah.
One point there is that theoretically, SDK2 will not be much different than SDK 1.15 in terms of metadata. So someone that can jump to SDK 1.15 is also able to jump to SDK 2. That's the whole point. The problem with SDK 2, I mean, the people that have difficulty jumping to SDK 2 is the people that are using EFX. And those are the ones that will need, more time to make the switch. So yeah, since this is a breaking change, it requires a new major version. But we still don't know exactly how this will look like at the end. This is something that we are currently discussing, and we will know more about this by the next time we meet in May. Well, we will know more about this by SDK beta, but
yeah.
So it is a little bit too early for us to tell you 100% that this is an SDK2 upgrade. Most likely it is one.
No, it is. I mean, we can't express the new undisclosed fields with SDK 1, even if the changes are not massive. But even the way, I don't know, fields JSON expresses unpublished fields in a certain way, we probably have to tweak that a little bit.
No. The fields JSON is not a problem. The only problem that is a breaking change is the change in the SDK. Fields JSON can express them new unpublished fields just like any other field. It doesn't really care. The fields JSON is not a problem. The problem is we're creating a totally new schema. And we will give you a verdict on this at the end. But most likely, yes, it's going to be a breaking change in the way that we define breaking change in the versioning page. And therefore, it will require SDK2. We're not going to break our own rules or bend them. We're going to follow them, and they're there for good reason. So give us a little bit of time, give us this month to sort this out and finalize the design of what this will look like physically, and we will give you a confirmation. But I don't expect that, you know, any sender that is not using you know, the SDK as it's meant to be for a metadata-driven application will have any problem switching between, you know, SDK 1.15 or SDK 2. It will be the same for you.
Yeah, I think the other point is about timing. So you would have wanted to get it earlier, but yeah.
Anyway, yes, we'll do our best anyway to make this as easy as possible.
Yeah.
But it's clearly a change that is in favor of simplicity, and yeah, all the complexity that we can get rid of, we should get rid of it as soon as possible.
Simplification takes time. Yes. Okay. Are you planning to consolidate two visualization applications for notices into one? At the moment, we have the TED API visualization and the TED website visualization. They don't produce exactly the same PDF and HTML. And also the HTML that it produces is not printable. It only prints the first page. For now, we're keeping the API visualization and the TED website ones. They're two separate applications. We keep them in parallel. I mean, the deviations shouldn't be too different. They're quite similar. With SDK2, we'll be able to do some things that I think were only on the TED website, so that will bring them closer together. For printing, I just say, well, use PDF. I mean, HTML is not really the best thing for printing, but maybe let us know if it's not printable on TED or if it's not printable on the API one. But yeah.
If I also may add something here, Carl, there are several parameters that create this divergence between the TED website and the other OJS apps for the visualization, which are technical. And I explained earlier the difficulties that we have had so far with visualizations in SDK1, but also contractual. So this will persist for a while, but definitely the vision is if SDK2 visualizations are good enough for both systems, eventually, yes, we will converge to one system. But currently, it's not something that we can promise for a visible time frame. That's the direction we're going, and we hope that we will be able to merge these two systems into one.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, the next one's for you, Yanis. But EFX pattern visitor. It's an old issue.
Oh.
Yeah. If you want to have a look, and we can come back to it later, maybe.
I'm going to look
to read the
at
history
now because I remember somebody asking me, but
yes,
my focus management system is very strict. So a lot of things that escape my attention, although they shouldn't. So I'm going to look at this right now.
Okay, Yanis, I'll just jump to the next one.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Say
okay, sorry. I thought you were going to answer. Look and answer. Okay, look at it. The other one's about the Third Amendment, so you can keep out of that one. And we've got a few more recent ones.
Yes.
So is there more clarity on when the Third Amendment will be published? Yes, the idea would be maybe Q1, Q2 in 2027. So after the summer, basically, we will actively start again. So if you saw the timing of the Public Procurement Act proposal that comes in June, after that, I think our colleagues in Brussels and us as well will be able to refocus and get back to the eForms world, while the rest of the world and the Commission and the member states can start looking at the future act. So yeah, that'll be good to get back to it. And on our side, at least at the publications office, we'll have got a lot of SDK2 work out of the way. It also allows us to refocus after the summer. So yeah.
Sorry, do you mean year 2027 or 26?
Sorry, Q1, Q2, 2027. So if we have a third amendment to eForms in the first half of next year, so if this time next year we have a good idea of what's coming, that's when the amendment would come. And then we'll see from an SDK point of view when we can actually have an SDK that implements it. So, but if the legal basis can be done in the first half of next year, so this time next year, possibly we have a third amendment. Yeah. We have more recent questions. Yeah. How long are eSenders in EU countries expected to be able to send notices directly to the EU official journal instead of national gateways? Is there a plan for each EU country by which national gateways have to exist? I don't know, actually. It depends on the country. In some countries already, there's already a national gateway. I think we saw the questions in registration. This is an Italian question, I think. So I don't know. It depends on each country. So we'll have to get in touch with the national gateway and say what are your plans?
Maybe I can say something on this.
Okay, hi.
I think that we see that usually the eSender is the national gateway. So it's not uncommon for some countries that the eSenders are sending it to a central point and then it is sent to the to TED. And I think especially with the revision, this will be the case.
So there will be a move towards national hubs, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And just keep track of that reply. Okay, there was a withdrawn question, but the presentations are online already, just so you know. If you refresh the agenda page. Is there any chance to further develop the TED expert search in order to have the possibility to have a separate row for a contract? So at contract level instead of at notice level. So yeah, this is more of a TED issue, not so much for eSenders, but our colleagues in TED have noticed it. Discuss it within the TED team and see if it could be developed in future. So yeah, thanks for the feedback. Yes, one last question. Are there any challenges with respect to the migration of notices from 1.0 to 2.0, 1x to 2x? How difficult would it be for undisclosed fields? I don't know. It's a good question. We should see what is involved. So be more case if you're changing a notice that has a different structure. I think it's mainly for undisclosed fields. That would be the main difference, because instead of having hundreds of field level BTs, you would have them at the top. I don't know, but yeah, we'll have to come across that as well. That'll be an issue we will have to face, for example, for notices too, when you're changing or continuing a notice. Yeah, I think it would affect you if you change a result notice. Contract modifications don't care. Yeah, this would be an issue for changing result notices, I think. So yeah, thanks for highlighting it. We'll have to bear it in mind, yeah. And just for info, great, about national gateways. In Denmark, we have a national gateway, but we're only required to send below threshold notices to it directly. For EU notices, they get them from TED, and we submit to TED via eSenders. So yeah, it's a decentralized system in Denmark. The national gateway is only for the national level ones. Yep. Okay, thanks for that, Denmark. Okay, we'll see if Yanis has had a chance to look at EFX pattern visitor.
Well, I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a valid concern. I don't. Well, maybe we should do a call about this. So the problem that the user is expressing is he's trying to create a translator to do live validation, like he notices to tries to do. But there are some rules about mandatory forbidden, which are anchored to a context that is a node, and that node doesn't exist, and therefore the rule cannot be evaluated. And he notices to has a kind of undefined behavior with the current live validation that it has. So the user is wondering what gives here. How am I going to deal with this? So the answer is not trivial on this. It will be, of course, better when SDK2 is released. But let's have a call about this and discuss it in person, if that's okay with you. We should talk behind the scenes right now in the chat and find a way to call each other and talk about this in person.
Okay, I think it's from France. I think Xavier or might be in the audience. So
yeah.
Okay, Xavier has my email, so also yours. We can put them in touch.
Yes. Okay.
And Dina in France. Okay. Yep. Okay, I think that's the end of the questions. So yeah, we have 2 more questions for you. So this is a quick just give us a quick idea of what sort of things you would like to know in future. If there are any burning issues. I know we cover a lot, but maybe there are parts you want to go deeper. I guess if we don't get many answers now, it's probably because we've exhausted all the subjects, which is good. Short meetings are better. In the good old days, it would take all day to get through eForms, and it's always good when we can wrap things up in a couple of hours. So I think at one point we said we could have fewer workshops, but then we thought it's better to touch base every quarter anyway. Yeah, future breaking changes. That's a good point. We should always cover those things. And even if technically something is breaking, sorry, something for you it might be breaking even if it's not an SDK break and change. So we have to keep aware of that one. Yeah, after we close the meeting, there'll still be Slido. There's a few questions afterwards. So if you think of something afterwards, the Slido will still be open for a day or 2. So don't worry. Okay, I have one further question. In one word, what did you like? Are you still sunny and happy? Still sunny here. Okay, keep updated regularity. It's great. Shorter this time. Yep. That's always good news. Organized. Yeah, well organized. Behind the scenes, Jenna and Yulia and Panos, and we've got several people working behind the scenes. So thanks to everyone you don't see. Focus, clarity, content. Keep updated in order to plan ahead. Yeah, we know that for you, your planning is important. One comment we have is that almost the timing is more important than the content. So you know your team are ready to go. the details, the lifespans. I'll keep my sensual voice. I'll do podcasts and audiobooks when I retire. After the next PP Act. Clarity. Okay, no, thank you very much. It's good to get feedback, and it's good that, well, you see Yanis and me mostly, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes. Before I go, I almost forgot. In one of my slides, I had a couple of storks, and in fact, I wanted to mention there that one of the birds in our nest will fly. So Bertrand Laurent, who some of you might have seen over the years, and you'll see him in SDK in the GitHub posting updates. He's leaving us next month, and he's from Alsace. That's why I chose a stork. He's not going far. He's going to the other official journal to support them. So if you're publishing legislation or the rest, you'll be happy to know that there's someone very good there. But just to say thank you, Bertrand, for all the years you've been with us, and yeah, the SDK will survive without you, but it's not going to be quite as easy without you. So thanks, Bertrand. Just wanted to share that before you went offline.
Thank you, Bertrand.
Okay. Do we have any of the issues, Yanis? I think we've covered quite a lot.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's find the touch point with Xavier.
Yep, and maybe we'll see. Find some workshop for those who wanted to dive into deep after beta. Find a slot in May or June where you
We
can
will
dive
also,
deeper.
yes, consider a little bit the format, because every time I
Yep.
feel the presentations that I'm just repeating your ears so thorough
Yep.
in your presentations, and you're getting better and better.
No, but your stuff is something.
I'm starting to feel much less useful here.
No, but that's why you need a workshop where you can dive into the code a bit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, we call these workshops, but they're fairly bit of a one-way conversation sometimes.
Yeah. Yes.
So if everyone can get an invitation, and then people can register for more technical discussions, because yeah, we have a hybrid audience here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's finish on time and wish you all a good lunch, good weekend, good Easters.